Well, maybe if it's okay, and it's good to see you, Randolph. Maybe I can ask you a couple of questions. We can try and convert you right here today. You know, we've been doing a great job of getting conversions recently, and I feel like you'd be the perfect trophy. You know, if we took your head and scalped you, then that would be epic for the Christian movement. You know, so.
Well, given that I run an organization called Canadian, I can see why you'd say yes.
Okay, so what is it? So, how do you justify truth in your worldview? What is the standard through which you evaluate the truth value of a proposition? Oh,
Well, I guess it would be dependent on what it calls for. Like, if it just calls for a logical response, then of course logic would be it. If it's more like the proposition is, say, something physical, like there's something in my backyard, then what I'm going to use instead of relying on logic is I'm going to rely on going and taking a look and seeing if that thing is in my backyard. So it would depend on the proposition. So it's not just one standard. The standard depends on what standard is called for, I guess.
so is there any way that you could justify God?
Actually, I put out something called the Cosmic Challenge. This was in response to some Christians asking a few years ago on Twitter, and it's been called the Cosmic Challenge since. Basically, what it was is they were saying that their God is omniscient, knowing everything, and omnipotent, all-powerful, and a whole bunch of other omni-properties, omni-chronological, permeates all of time, things like that. So I said, okay, so what would suffice as a form of evidence for me that would be convincing is, since this God is all-powerful and all-knowing, to grant me omniscience and omnipotence for maybe 2 weeks so I could run some experiments, create a galaxy and destroy it in the middle of nowhere in space, kind of do some stuff like that. Then I can verify it for myself. That would definitely convince me. A few Christians told me they're praying for me. Others tried to negotiate the time frame. A lot of different responses came up, but that's one example.
We're going to get you. That's an interesting case. Go on, please.
There'd be a slightly high bar, though, for to justify God exists, that you have to be made into an omniscient, omnipotent being that can destroy the galaxies and stuff.
Well, and this came up, and so somebody said, "Well, how do we know you're not going to go and destroy God with it?" And I said, okay, I'm willing to agree to certain things that I won't and cannot do, so it could be a slightly limited form of omnipotence. But I would definitely want the both together, because I'd want to use the omniscience to make sure that I don't cause problems inadvertently when using the omnipotence.
This is the silliest line of dialogue I've ever heard in my life.
Okay. So what we're going to do is, if it's okay, what we're going to do is, so you change the way that you justify things based on the kind of question that you're asking. So you've got like different ways of evaluating truth based on the different sets that you're evaluating. So do you believe that logical justifications are justifications for a position? Do you think that you could prove something through logic?
But generally, yes. I can't think of something where logic wouldn't apply. But again, it's not the only thing I rely on, because if the example I gave you, somebody telling me something's in my backyard, I guess you could argue that it'd be the logical thing to go and check and see if it's there. So,
right. So you know what a contingency relationship is, right?
Okay, so philosophy is not my strong point, so this is new terminology for me.
Dependency relationship. You know what a dependency relationship is, right?
Okay, so these sound like philosophical. Like we're getting thick in the weeds.
No, it's like a dependent. Like, do you have any dependents? Do you have any kids?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So yes, I have 2 daughters, and so my wife and I they're dependent on both of us.
Okay, so the point is that basically that they're in a dependency relationship with you, and you're in a
Yes.
dependency relationship with the material world, and the
Yeah.
material world in a dependency relationship with the what is it called,
Reality.
the corporeal world through the laws of logic, right?
Well, I see the laws of logic as an emergent characteristic of reality. I don't know. I guess it's something that we use to assess reality until such time as something better than the laws of
Okay,
logic come along.
let's make it really easy. So, do you think that all states in the material world are contingent states of affairs? They're dependency states.
It seems to be the case, yes.
Okay. So, do you agree that there has to be some non-contingent, non-dependent thing that can account for all contingencies and dependencies?
Account for, I guess you mean like to be able to say this is here, why kind of thing.
Well,
I'm trying to.
constitute their concrete reality first,
Account
and then
for
make them
it's like
intelligible.
yeah. So, like, there's a cost, right? There's a relationship that has something that's owed. There's a contingency here. It's a dependent state. There's something that's needed, a precondition for that
Oh,
dependent state.
okay. So,
Like, how would the depend? This is the question. How would something that was dependent be there if there wasn't a non-dependent thing for it to have a dependency relationship with?
okay. So, I guess an example could be we're dependent on the Earth, but is the Earth necessarily dependent on anything?
Yeah, the Earth's it's in a dependency relationship with the rest of the material world.
With the universe, well, like the universe and everything. Okay.
Yeah,
I guess, well, with the universe and everything, not necessarily dependent on
dependent
life.
on it's a dependent on atoms forming in the way that they do. It's dependent on the laws of
Gravity.
logic being upheld
Gravity.
throughout time.
Yeah, it does seem to be that this dependency, we can follow the chain back quite far, and so far everything seems to have a dependency on something else. So that
Okay,
seems to
so,
be the case.
all
Yeah.
yeah, but any dependent thing is going to have to be dependent on, like, all potentialities and dependencies are going to have to be actualized. They're going to have to be actualized by an actualizer. That's the correct terminology. An actualizer, the only way that a potentiality can come into existence is if there's an actualizer to actualize that potentiality, right?
Sure.
So the contingent state has to be actualized by a non-contingent, non-dependent thing. That's God. That's what we're talking about when we say God. Do you want to
Okay.
give him?
Is
Do you want to
is
give
is
him
there
away for us?
is there only one God?
There is only one God, but we can get to that later on. But
Okay.
this argument, it necessitates that there must be one thing that is non-dependent, non-contingent. So this is just the first step. We're just saying there is something that's non-dependent and non-contingent, and then after that, we'll bring you more. We've got even more. I've got like tons of stuff here. We've got the scientific justification, the logical proofs, the testimony, the pragmatic justification, the archaeological evidence. We've got what else have we got? We've got the historicity, we've got the testimony, we've got the miracles, we've got the prophecies, we've got it all going on here, okay? So, once we get through this, we can start looking at something cooler, even cooler than this is. So,
So it sounds like you've got it very well organized.
indeed,
The
obviously, this isn't, some
the
kind
part
of atheist shit
the
show.
part so the part I struggle with is the God part. I'm not convinced that that is part of reality.
Yeah, but we just got to the non-contingent, non-dependent thing, and you're with us there, right? You're there.
So So I'm saying for the contingent things, seems to be a chain that falls back to another thing, another thing, another thing. You're saying that there's this very first thing that isn't dependent on anything that created everything, this God. And that's what I'm having trouble with. How can
Well,
I
no, I'm
know
not
that
just
this
saying
is
that at the moment. I'm
okay?
not saying that at the moment. I'm just saying that in order for a contingency relationship, a contingency is just a dependency relationship, right? A contingent state is just a dependency relationship. We already went through
Sure.
that. And it's
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not tricking you by saying contingency.
No,
It's
no,
just
no. I know you're
that's
not.
how the that's
I
how
know
the
you're not trying to
argument's
trick me.
formulated, yeah?
Yeah,
So the
I know you're not
contingency,
trying to trick me. Yeah.
all contingent states are going to be contingent on something that's non-contingent, right? We're not even saying that there's one God. We're just saying that there has to be something that's non-contingent that exists.
Okay,
That's
that's where I'm having trouble. Is why is that justified? To say it must be dependent on something that's non-contingent
because
on
a
anything else.
because a potentiality can't actualize itself without yeah, the potentiality can't
Without an
actualize
actualizer.
itself. You
Yeah, it
need
needs
an
an
actualizer.
actualizer.
Yeah.
Sure. But the actualizer could be dependent on something else, right?
Well, you can suppose something else.
Not
You would have to
forever.
defend it.
Not forever. There has to be an actualizer that's non-contingent at some point in order to actualize the first state of potentiality.
So yeah, and this is where I'm not convinced, right? This is the
This
problem
is
I'm having. Yeah.
this is where you need to go to private school and get the Christian teachers. You know what I mean? Because
My
So let me
brother
say
went
this to
to
him.
private school for a while. He didn't like it, but he went. Yeah.
So let me ask him this: what is God?
Sure. I don't really have a clear definition of it. I tend to go along with what religious people tell me as they define it, but I do find that a lot of people list off characteristics such as omniscience and omnipotence in the majority of cases. And very often the Christian God is cited because I talk to a lot of Christians.
Okay. So what I'm about to say, I think you're going to be familiar. It's written in the
All right.
open chat. I know I can see you driving, so you don't have to bother yourself. Out. Don't risk your life. Just be
Thank you. I
safe.
appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
For real. So metaphysical rhetorical questions. How do you have uniformity without a unifier? How do you have regularity without a regulator? How do you have normalcy without a normalizer? How do you have laws without a lawgiver? How do you have intelligibility without intelligence? How do you have personality without personhood? In addition, that I didn't write down in the open chat, like was just discussed to you with NotFox, how do you have potentiality without an actualizer? Faster.
well, if we can get into the actualizer, just one actualizer, right? That's non-contingent, then we can start actualizing some of those contingent states like relationality, right? With the actualizer. It's going to be a breakthrough. This guy's going to be like, wow. When we get to the prophecies, I bet he says, wow.
So, on this point about the actualizer, right? There's multiple ways to begin the approach when talking to someone, but since we're here, then we can go over here. That's fine. If you don't have an actualizer that is truly sufficient to do that act, then of course you can't have the concrete reality before us, right? And neither could you have potentiality itself, nor the potentiality of anything else, because potentiality itself is an abstract entity. And abstract entities, all of them, subsist a mind, and minds are possessed by concretely real living things.
He's not ready yet. He's not ready. He doesn't know what contingency, he doesn't know there's an actualizer yet. He's still getting over
You
that.
see, so the
Yeah, that's
necessary
correct.
prerequisite to have
That's where I'm stuck.
anything.
That's where I'm
Go ahead,
stuck.
go ahead.
Yeah.
He's not
Sorry,
at the
So,
actualizer yet. He
I was
needs
just
help.
confirming what Not Fox just said about me. That is correct. That's where I'm stuck.
okay. So, I can only show you something to look at. I can't make you see. I can only give you something to interpret. I can't make you understand.
Yeah, but we've got to get into
So
the actualizer, right? It's all right talking about the contingency relationships between, like, in the world, and relationality is necessary to institute all, you know, relationships in the world. We need a relational God to account for relationality in the world. The
yeah, so in
actualizer
the
has to be
world,
relational, but he's got
right?
to get to the actualizer. So all we should be talking about is, in different words, explaining to this guy why there has to be a non-contingent, non-dependent thing that accounts for all contingency relationships, right? All
Yeah, so
contingencies have to be accounted for by an actualizer, right? The
yes,
actualizer can't be contingent ultimately, because otherwise it would never exist. No contingent state would come into existence. No potentiality. There'd be nothing unless there was an actualizer,
right.
right?
So the world that we have before us has actuality. Acts are elapsing, actions are elapsing. Now, of course, they would not elapse had not what is needed to cause them to elapse, to cause them to be manifest. Right? We would not have them if we did not have what is needed to do so. So this is why philosophers talk about the necessary preconditions for human experience, for intelligibility, right? For the world to be what it is, right? The world, the sum total of the world that you see before your entire life is not ase. It does not have aseity, right? Because there are obviously a plethora of things, only the God knows how many, where it's contingent upon something else other than it that preceded it, that is of a higher order of being than it.
What does the word
Can you?
Aseity
Oh, I say it.
is aseity is complete self-sufficiency. It does not depend on anything else to be what it is. It is completely dependent on itself to be what it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it doesn't have an actual. That's
Yeah,
You
so
see,
okay.
there has to be something that's like, it's like an unchanging thing. It doesn't change based on its creation, right? So this just ties into the fact that the non-contingent, non-dependent thing not only has to be able to account for everything in the world, but it has to be able to account for everything in the world before it institutes these contingency states, right? It has to be able to account for any contingency that's actualized through it within itself. So the thing that's non-contingent, non-dependent has to account for intent in the world. And the only thing that can account for intent in the world is a mind. Okay. So in order to allow for a world that has intent within it, then you need an actualizer that's not contingent on the world for instituting that intentionality in the world. So this is how we're getting to a God with a mind and stuff.
Okay, yeah,
so with
actually, I
those
think I
metaphysical
understand what you're
questions, um, say again, say again.
saying. Sorry, I was just saying, I think I understand what.
Okay.
These are
Mind
heavy
blowing,
topics.
right? I
There's a
was an
lot.
atheist.
There's a lot to digest here.
I was an
Mhm.
atheist, right? And it's mind blowing. You know what I mean? I do understand. I was in your position one time listening to Darth Dawkins for 9 hours, blown away. Like, wow. My brain actually expanded. My IQ, well, I can't say my IQ, but my chess rating went up to the highest I'd ever achieved at 1600 for a few weeks after that moment. Right?
So okay, so with all those questions, succinctly summarizing our worldview is the following. The one and only true triune God, Yahweh, aka Yahweh, has revealed himself. Revelation from the concretely real, spiritual, simple, personal, absolute, universal, sovereign, omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, omnipresent, eternal, immutable, infallible, incorrigible, necessary God. He has endowed all humans with knowledge of himself since the very beginning of our existence. He has demonstrated his divine supremacy in creation from the most macroscopic scale to the most microscopic scale. He has spoken. He has sent messengers to speak on his behalf. He has written his revelation, and he has revelation written by other messengers of his on his behalf, the Holy Mikra, aka the Bible. All worldviews and doctrinal systems contrary to the Holy Mikra are incoherent, thus in principle rendering knowledge impossible and reality to absurdity. So that's the position at least I maintain among others in here.
You
He
know,
is not.
that
Just to
is
finish
very
this.
that is very specific. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. So, yeah, it is specific. This is a distinct God who is thrice holy, right? Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. You know, when the prophet Yeshayahu Isaiah heard the host of heaven praising the Lord for the thrice holy, set apart God who is distinct from all other so-called gods. So, yes, it is very specific. I don't defend anything else except.
Yeah, I like that you're being specific, and then you.
Oh, you
Is
cut
it
out
me
for a
that's
moment.
breaking up?
Yeah,
It's so
because
sad.
There you are. There you are.
because there's okay.
Yeah,
I like that
start
you have.
again.
I'll start again. I like that you have a long, detailed list of all this.
Thank you.
Because yeah, you're welcome. I can tell you put a lot of effort and thought into this, and I appreciate that because I think that's important. A lot of the theists I've conversed with over the years usually seem to have a very vague, unclear understanding. You're quite specific, and I like this. And I look forward to talking with you again. I'm almost at my destination.
Thank you.
So
Oh, he's running.
My
He's
pleasure.
going to run, guys. He's
no,
dipping out before we
Don't
can
tease him.
convert him. Oh,
yeah,
this is what they do every single time. Every single time. Once we get them on the ropes, then they start running.
I drive faster than I run. I got to tell you.
Ox is trying to
But
develop his comedian skills.
yeah, have you heard? Are you familiar with a guy on Discord named Barthology?
Yes,
Dude,
I am.
that guy's a scumbag. He's a
I know,
scumbag.
but he'll say this is what they do, and the way he says that is great. Otherwise, yeah, I'm not a fan of him, but I do like the way he says that. So,
Dude,
but
we've always made that. We made that together, to be honest. It
oh,
was
okay,
actually,
great.
yes,
Yeah.
we all.
So,
It's from Darth. Darth made
okay.
it, really.
Oh, okay, yeah. Darth Dawkins has talked with me quite a few times, and it usually doesn't end well.
Let me ask
But
you this before you go. I've got to catch you before you go. So this is it. Do
sure.
you believe in the material world? Is everything material?
I will say that I accept it as being the world. I don't take belief in the sense of it being like a faith or something. It's just this is what I'm working with. This is I can't deny it.
Okay, so you think everything's material?
Uh, Everything around me seems to be. Of course, gravity is not really material in my view, but it is a force. So there are things that are different like that. Kinetic forces aren't material, but they affect the material world. So most
Okay.
things, like anything I can pick up and carry
Okay,
or
it's a
push
physical
around or
world.
change, that's material,
Do you
right?
believe in an eternal physical world, or do you believe in a do you believe in an eternal physical world, or do you believe in a finite physical world?
I'm for the most part undecided, but I lean heavily toward it being eternal.
Eternal. Oi! So how do you traverse an infinite past in order to get to this moment?
Yeah, like it's always the cosmos has always been.
Yeah, but how would you overcome an infinite amount of hurdles prior to this moment in order to get to the present?
You can't
And
do
that's a
that on a
great
number
question, and
line.
that's why you can't take it
That's,
as a complete 100% position.
Well,
yeah,
it's an
that's
absurd.
it. So that's it. So you believe in an irrational position that you can't justify, and you should just accept the Christian God. That's where we're
Well,
at, right?
I wouldn't call it irrational, but I can't justify it. I've done that.
That is irrational. That's literally irrational.
Because I'm
There you
admitting that I
go.
can't justify it and I don't know for certain. That's why I think it's not rational.
That's why it's not rational.
Not irrational. I said not irrational.
No, that is irrational. If you've got no logical justification for it and you believe in it anyway, that's irrational.
You
So
know,
that's it.
this has been actually quite an enjoyable conversation. All of you have been wonderful. I really appreciate it. Thank you,
Yeah.
and I
Thank you.
look
I
forward
hope
to
you
talking with
return.
you again. No, I'm serious because quite often these conversations end up going down the drains, to put it
Hmm.
nicely. I, I'm really enjoying talking with you guys, and I'm going to look into the actualizer stuff because that's a new concept for me, the way you guys are presenting it, and it sounds interesting.
I hope you return.
I will.
If Face wants to say anything before you go, that maybe.
You seem like a really decent guy, really well spoken, and I like what you're doing. Apart from the atheism stuff, all of the human rights and all this sort of stuff, really good. And hopefully we can talk again. And great. I sent you a friend request.
Oh, yeah,